After suffering a major setback, have you ever wanted to make a big comeback? If you've ever been laid off or told you were done, how would it feel to show the people who let you go that you're actually in an even better place than before? I finally got that chance. Just recently, an article about my life was published in a global newspaper. And when I saw it, I didn't just feel proud. I felt a sudden urge to be a bit petty. I realized this was my comeback, and I wanted to smush that article into the faces of the people who decided I was expendable back in 2020. So let's go somewhere a little less polite, because the brutal lie we're told is that keeping to yourself is the most dignified way to handle a setback, when really it's often just a place to hide. On this channel, I explore how to find your ikigai and navigate huge life pivots that come after 50. And today, we're talking about the part of the comeback that's not really talked about. Overcoming the lie that you're not good enough and finally allowing yourself to be seen. I felt shame after I was laid off. I was let go after being there for 6 months, and it was during lockdown. What I felt was I was totally expendable. It also made me somewhat convinced that I didn't want to go back to that career path anymore. I didn't want to go back to art direction or graphic design. At first, I did explore some freelance projects, but from there, I really wanted to try something new. It was that shameful feeling that I didn't want to have anything further to do with that career path, or even the people that I worked with in all my years of graphic design and advertising. Another thing that was affecting me was that the way I was raised. And I'm Japanese American. My mom is Okinawan American. My dad is Japanese American. And there is this philosophy called gaman. And what it means is to endure hardships. And the more that you can endure, it's almost like the more strong you are. And it's taken as a very, I would say, noble trait. The more that you can persevere, the stronger or better you are. And so this kind of thinking or philosophy I grew up with, and it's an old tradition, I believe. It still was in my culture. Even the whole idea of not standing out too much. So what that meant for me was that I needed to just deal with the layoff and move on. I needed to endure this quietly to myself and don't make a fuss. And I think probably there is some sort of, I don't know if this is quite stoicism, but kind of feels a little bit like stoicism, and probably is in many other different cultures as well. So another thing I'm going to go ahead and share is that when I started my YouTube channel, I decided not to use my real last name. And the reason that I didn't want to is because I was involved in a very contentious divorce. And my ex was very litigious, so he took us to court many, many times. So starting a YouTube channel and sharing my life was already on one hand hard enough. But on the other hand, after sort of dealing with this constant battles, I really didn't want to share my whole entire life with him. So that's where eventually the name of my channel, Dana Finewell, came about. And so when the journalist from the South China Morning Post reached out to me and asked me if she could do an article about my life, I said okay, and I felt like it was like a privilege to be chosen. So I was happy about that. But before the article was released, she said that she had to use my real last name. And I really had to sit and think about whether or not I wanted to have the article published, because I had been hiding my last name, from my YouTube channel for, I don't know, how long has it been now? 4 or 5 years. And I felt comfortable and I felt good. And even my book, Keepsake Stories, my journal, I used my pseudonym. So I put Dana Finewell as, the author name. And so I felt very comfortable about using that as my pen name as well. So I really had to sit with it and think, what am I feeling? What is this fear I have about exposing my real name? And I realized that I was just hiding. And I think I had good reason to hide. But then I realized that I don't need to hide anymore. So I said, okay, go ahead and, publish this article. And had no idea how the article was going to be written in some ways. And this is Sven right here. I don't know if you can see him. I noticed that he's always sitting by me, but he's so low that you can't see him. And so he's kind of propped up on some pillows right here, but he's slipping down. I had no idea what was going to be said really in the article. I mean, I realized that, I was being interviewed, and the last question that she asked me really, I don't know, sort of made me stumble, and I wasn't sure about what she was going to write. And when the article came out, I was so happy. It was really well written. It was very positive, and I felt really proud. And I think sometimes we don't see all the accomplishments that we've made until maybe it comes from another person's perspective. So that was really, really great. And I had no problem sharing it with my community on YouTube, which is good. I was very happy to do that, and I got a lot of great support back. And then I came to that realization that, what if I post this article on LinkedIn? And I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice to kind of make this comeback? And I hadn't been on for, how many years. So I thought about it and I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to post it. And I realized that I was starting to feel I was feeling bad. Like, am I petty? Especially with my upbringing and with the whole gaman thing, and just to, let it go and keep to myself. But then I started thinking about Rocky made his comeback and nobody thought he was a bad person. What about EJ from K-pop Demon Hunters, right? She wrote and sang that song, Golden. And her story was definitely a comeback, and she was able to show that she didn't give up. She didn't give up. She made it after hard work and perseverance. Rocky made it after hard work and perseverance. And little old me was able to pivot, and I was able to pivot into a completely different career. And now I help thousands of people by sharing my story. I wasn't giving myself enough credit. I would look at all these other underdogs and think, yeah, they're good for them for having the bravery, the courage to stand up and share. And yet I was doubting myself for that feeling of wanting to share. So I wanted to talk to you about this because I wanted to process this feeling. And I know that a lot of us in midlife, after 50 or, at any age really, we face different hardships. We face different challenges, whether it's being laid off, going through a divorce, losing a loved one, having to downsize, and, and many other challenges. Why is it that when we face this hardship and challenge, we don't give ourselves enough grace for realizing how we are pivoting and making a change in the positive direction and saying, yeah, we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to feel ashamed of the circumstances. I went ahead and posted the article on LinkedIn. I was actually really surprised in how much really wonderful support there was for me. People who I haven't talked to in 6 years, 7 years, messaged me and, liked the article. And I was kind of shocked at how many people came out and supported. And then I also noticed that other people that I didn't know were liking the article as well. And people talked about how, they have been laid off and how they're at a crossroads. They don't know what to do. And I thought, wow, by me posting this article, I'm actually helping others realize that they can get through this too. That it's not the end. It's not the end. It's just the beginning of new possibilities, no matter what your age. And if I can start over at 55, 56 years old, and then now at 61 to have made significant changes, you can too. So what I do feel is I'm proud of my accomplishments, and I am proud to share that with the people who laid me off, because it shows that I'm not expendable, that I actually have worth, that I can make a difference, and
There we go.
you can too.
Little gorilla.
I no longer feel petty and have spite in my heart about the layoff. I feel vindicated. Feeling vindicated is actually a wonderful feeling. So in a sense, I can almost like move on from that chapter of my life. I feel like I can hold my head up high. I actually went ahead and revised my profile in LinkedIn, and now instead of art director, I am now YouTuber and author. And so, you know, this is a new chapter of my life, and I feel really good about it. What I've done here on YouTube is really talked about my journey of starting over and all the different phases or things that I've experienced. You know, I'll try something out, maybe it doesn't work. I'll go down one direction and realize, no, maybe I need to pivot again. So that feeling of, am I a bad person? No, I'm not a bad person. I'm a person who is trying to show how you can survive a hardship and how you can actually thrive afterwards. That LinkedIn post was the way that I made my comeback. I decided that in this case, gaman, of taking the high road, of keeping it to myself, was a way of hiding, and I didn't want to hide anymore. I was worried that I was being petty, but now I realize that what actually happened was that I was vindicated. My desire to smush that article in their faces wasn't actually about being mean. It was realizing my own self-worth. It was me finally saying, I'm not a failure, and I'm not a victim. I'm no longer afraid of exposing my own name. Here's the thing. The comeback wasn't about getting back into my old world. It was about proving to myself that I could step out of the shadows and into the light. And the most important thing that came out of it is that I could share my story of starting over within a platform that deals with so many people affected by layoffs, ageism, and downsizing. If you might be hiding a little from a boss, an ex, or a mistake you made long ago, I want you to ask yourself, is your silence wisdom, or is it just a cage? Maybe you need to do a little flexing too. Now that you understand how keeping to yourself can actually be a way of hiding, check out my video, The Brutal Lie of Aging, that I'm finally done believing. It's the foundation for everything we talked about today. I'll actually put it down in the description below. And make sure you're subscribed, because in my next video, we're going to tackle a different kind of hiding. The brutal lie that letting go of your keepsakes means erasing your history. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you find wellness today and every day. See you next time. Oh, Sven, you're pushing me. You're pushing me. Yes, you're pushing me. Hi. Hi. Okay. Hi, Sven.